What's going on, guys? My name is Chris Howe, and I've had a camera in my hand since I was about 8 years old. And I've been shooting professionally for the last 7 to 8 years, so I've used a wide range of different camera brands, different camera bodies, and camera lenses. And today I'm gonna be talking about my kit and the different recommendations that I have in terms of lenses that you'll actually use and the ones maybe you should consider just renting. So let's jump into today's video. Woo! So I own about 5 lenses. That's a lot of lenses to own, and that bag on my back when I'm carrying all of them gets really heavy. So eventually I went from carrying all those lenses in my back, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop carrying as many lenses right now. So I started taking lenses that I don't use that often out, and those lenses are the following. Let's talk about my least used lens, and that is the 12 to 24 millimeter f4 lens. Now, when I first bought this lens, I thought, yes, 12 millimeter, this is so wide. I had a helicopter flight going up. I was like, impulse buy, let's buy a 12 millimeter. It's gonna look so dope. And I've actually only ever used the lens. I'm sad to say, I literally spent $2,000 on a lens I've used twice. Now, both of those shoots that I've used it on were commercial shoots, so the lens has paid for itself. But looking back, I really wish that I rented the lens. I don't bring it with me that often. I can't put lens filters in front of it because the thread, it's such a wide piece of glass, you can't even put like ND stops or polarizers on it. So again, it's heavy to put in the bag. I can't put filters on the front of it. So because of those reasons, I don't really bring that lens around that often. Now let's talk about the next lens that I use maybe about 4 to 8% of the time, and I use it on a few commercial shoots, and that is the 90 millimeter f2.8 macro lens. Now, yes, macro lenses, I think a lot of people should have a macro lens or at least a macro feature in their lens kit. But again, I don't use this lens that often. Yes, it looks really cool, but in terms of practicality, in terms of how I use it in my lifestyle, which is vlogging and commercial shoots, I really don't use it that often. So in terms of lenses I should continue to either borrow or rent, that would be the 90 millimeter macro lens. Now we're gonna talk about a lens that people obviously love seeing, love having. When clients see it, they're like, oh, this guy is professional, this guy is legit. And that's the 70 to 200 millimeter lens. Now, I'm kind of on the fence about this lens. This lens I don't really use that often, and mainly because it's so heavy. I don't like carrying it around, and I'm often climbing up mountains or traveling, and this weighs my bag down, and flights on all these different airlines are like, your bag's too heavy, that will be more expensive to bring your bag. It's a great lens to have in your kit in terms of being a professional, but in terms of one that you'll probably use, I would maybe save your money for the next lenses I'm about to talk about. So let's talk about a lens that I'm currently using right now, and that is the 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8 lens. I love this lens. I use the 60 millimeter a lot for my Instagram grid. I like to shoot a lot of landscapes, so having a nice wide lens is great. And in terms of vlogging, I use this lens all the time. I'm using it right now, and it's great because you go from 16 millimeter to, I don't know why I made that sound, to 35 millimeter, which is awesome. So you can get a bit more compression. It's great for portraits. So you can use this for both landscapes and portrait lenses, or if you want to do that Casey Neistat dramatic punch-in shot. So that's also great for this lens too, and you still got that milky background. So I really love this lens. I would highly recommend it. I actually use it a ton, so this was a great investment for my kit. Now, let's talk about my most used lens out of my entire kit. The one that I think is the best investment, the one that I would highly recommend in terms of the focal range, and if you want to start getting into a more professional category, and that is the 24 to 70 f2.8 lens. This thing is great because at 24 millimeter, you have a great landscape lens. It goes nice and wide. If you bring it to 35 millimeter, you're getting into that like portrait range, or wider landscape range. You go to 50 millimeter f2.8, you're starting to get some great bokeh in your background, that soft, expensive looking kind of background. And then you go to 70, you have a great telephoto lens, which is awesome. So in terms of most versatile lens, that's the 24 to 70 f2.8 lens. This is the best bang for my buck I've ever had. I use it on my Ronin, I use it for photography, I use it for portraits, I use it pretty much for any type of genre of photography. So that's why I love this all-purpose lens. Obviously, this is an expensive lens, and it doesn't have to just be the Sony brand. If you guys want, you can use a Canon brand, you guys can use a Nikon brand, you can use whatever brand is associated to your current camera body. So I like the 24-70 or 24-105 focal range. I always like when the f-stop's lower because you get a more milky background, softer background, so you're falling in that 2.8 to f4 range. If you can't afford it, would recommend the f2.8 range. I love this lens. Now let's say you're starting your photography career. You can only afford one camera body and one camera lens. The focal range that I would recommend is somewhere in the 24-105 range, something that has a zoom feature where you can go from wide to get a wide shot to more telephoto shots. So that's great if you want to explore any genre of photography, whether it be wedding, commercial, portrait. You can kind of capture all types of different photography styles. Now real quick, I want to talk about the lenses that I wish I owned right now, and that's usually the prime lenses. That would be an 85mm f1.4 lens, whether it's Canon or Sony. They're all amazing. That means you get a really milky background, that really smooth looking background. I miss that. Having a really sharp lens, that's when you get into a prime focal range where there's no zooming, where you don't have 24-105 or 24-70, you just have a 24mm or you just have an 85mm. So I miss having one of those. So I would absolutely love to have a prime lens again, whether it's an 85mm f1.4 lens or a 50mm f1.2 or 1.4 lens. I miss having a prime lens. I would love to get one again. So let's say you want to start taking your photography to the next level. You want to become an absolute professional, someone who is very versatile that can go and shoot any type of event or setting or any commercial project. Here are the 3 lenses that I would recommend if you want to bust into that professional category or start thinking about lenses down the line. The first lens that I would recommend in your professional kit would be the 16-35mm f2.8 lens, the one lens that we're using right now. This lens is great for those super wides down to a tight, so you can use it for landscapes, you can use it for wides at events, and you can start using it for portraits if you go to 35mm. And if you're into vlogging, it's a great vlogging lens. The next lens that I would recommend is my favorite lens out of my entire kit, the next most versatile lens, which is the 24-70 f2.8 lens. Whatever brand it is, highly recommend this as your middle lens. And the final lens that I would recommend is the 70-200 f2.8 lens. This is a great telephoto lens. You get some great compression. You can shoot from a distance. Let's say somebody's having a conversation, you want to get some really great candids. This is great to get further back so you're not so close to them and distract them from like having a real genuine moment. So this is a great lens to have. Those are the lenses that you'll actually see in most professional kits. Those are the lenses that I use pretty much all the time. They're great for any style of photography, so would highly recommend. And don't forget, it doesn't always have to be the f2.8 version. You can look at the f4 version, or you can even look at the kit versions of those focal ranges. That way you can cover your range from 16mm all the way to 200mm, and they're all that constant f-stop of 2.8, so you have that great milky background that always looks super high quality and professional, where clients can justify to be like, oh, I understand why I hired this person. Now, ultimately, remember, we just talked a lot about gear. You guys don't need this gear to become a professional. There's different aspects of being a professional that you can consider, whether it's post-production, whether it's pre-production, whether it's telling a story with your photos, whether it's building your business so that you can start selling your photos. I know tons of people who own basic camera kits that only own one lens and go out there and kill it and make thousands of dollars as a photographer just because they understand how to use their current setup. Remember, this is one of my favorite quotes. The tools do not build the chair. So if you're out there thinking that the gear is the next investment that you need, it's probably the wrong answer. The reason why people buy gear is that they get the results that they want more consistently, and it speeds up the process. So it's all about efficiency as a professional photographer. You want to speed up your process, become more accurate, but don't forget it. It took me about 6 to 8 years to get all this gear to be able to finally afford it, but I always worked my way up. I owned one lens, then I bought maybe a second lens, did a bunch of research on it, and eventually just kept building my kits. Remember, it's not always about gear. So go out there, go to the fundamentals of photography, which is having fun with photography. Go out there, shoot some photos that you absolutely love and adore, and eventually you can start building your kit and have some fun with some gear. So on that note, if you guys like this video, please press like. It actually makes a difference. Subscribe. Would love for you to join along, and we're gonna catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, everybody, and thank you so much for watching. Woo!